All right, another 2 weeks flies by, and it's Paul Brennan back here in Welly.
And Martin Noakes, still in Welly.
Yeah, in fact, sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
So you really can't be anywhere else.
No.
Otherwise, I'm seeing things. Anyway, another busy couple of weeks in the world of aviation. We're going to get on to MH370 in a moment, obviously, and talk about some of the other news from the last 2 weeks. Good to see, Martin, and I'm going to incorporate a little bit of video with this at the front of the program. Good to see that at last the prototype 747, the first one built, is to be restored back to showroom condition.
Yeah.
But that's good.
That is good. That is good. A bit of aviation.
It's been rotting at Boeing Field in the rain.
Yeah.
And you're seeing footage of it now that I shot there before it was towed over to the museum back in, I think it was 02 or 03. And it really was in quite a state of disrepair, quite depressing to see.
Aviation history left outside.
Queen of the Skies.
Queen of the Skies.
First flew February 9th, I think it was, 1969.
So what's it been out of the air for, 20 years now?
Since the 777.
Okay.
I think its last job was to fly the Pratt & Whitney engine, the PW, whatever it was.
Yeah.
About 94, 95.
The Pratt & Whitney 4092 or something.
Was that the one? Yeah.
The unsuccessful 777 engine.
The one that United Planes had on them. And ever since then, it had been towed over to the far side of Boeing Field and just sort of parked there in the weather. And the weather through there can be very damp in the winter, not good for an aircraft.
It's only damp.
Well, it's only damp,
Yeah,
actually.
like always.
I haven't been there when it's been... Well, it was a bit sunny once.
Yeah.
But usually it's pretty misty and dull.
Yes.
Unlike the people, they're not like that.
It's always the case, isn't it? The worse the weather, the better the people.
There you
Hello,
go.
Wellington.
The brighter the people. So RA001.
That's in the old Boeing colours, right? With the blue and red stripes down the side.
That's right. Yep. Names of the pilots on the side. It has a 1 painted on it, being the number 1.
Are they going to restore it to flying condition,
No,
or is it just
I don't
going to
think
be
so.
okay?
Yeah, back to showroom. And they have to get it undercover. I think that's part of the plan.
Okay.
But if you ever go to Seattle, go to the Museum of Flight. They've got some great artifacts there indoors, but also out on the ramp. Also, number 737 is there.
I guess the closest thing flying to that plane would be those Iranian 747-100s with the refueling gear under the tail, right?
Pretty well, yeah. I think
In configuration
some of
terms.
those are in the first 20 or 30 made now. Those Iran Air Force. Are any of them flying, though, still?
I think they've just stopped flying one recently, but
Right.
I understand it's still flyable.
Yeah, they had the refueling boom. And RA001, you can see where they installed that on that aircraft to obviously...
So maybe Boeing should go to the
flying.
Iranians and get a flying example, eh?
Although I see they're allowed to sell them parts, or will be able to sell them parts, but there's a cut-off date for them, like old parts.
So only up to, what, 747-200s and that?
So I think so, yeah, or 300s, maybe even the 400s now, but they're getting on, aren't they?
Yeah, no one else wants them.
So RA001, the first 747 made, will be restored
Good news.
and put under cover, hopefully. So on to MH370. Okay, we made a correct prediction last program that we'd probably be here in 2 weeks' time saying well, no one's found it yet.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the case.
They're pretty close, though.
You reckon?
Well, they kind of know roughly where it is.
Yeah.
Narrowed it down from hundreds of thousands of square miles to 36 square miles, they reckon.
So what happens now is they have to, map the seafloor or examine the seafloor to try and find the wreckage?
Well, they've sent down a submersible yesterday or today, and it turns out the water's too deep for it.
Yeah.
So that
The Germans have got one that goes deeper, apparently.
I think
Trust the Germans.
I think there'll be a lot of submersibles flying around in the next few days.
Do you reckon you'd get anything you'd want for the hourly rate at this stage?
Jeez,
You could name it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially the deeper it went, eh?
Yeah.
So they've got to find the debris field, and then they've got to actually locate the part of the aircraft that is likely to be associated with these black boxes, which is, I think, the aft, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they may not actually be part of that structure anymore.
No,
They've been
no, it's gonna take some finding, but
thrown free or something.
it's going to be difficult. But I think Air France, the one that went down in the South Atlantic, that's a pretty good indication of what's possible because
Right.
they found that black box after 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure they'll get it.
Well, they're going to have to.
Hopefully there's enough information on there to let us know what actually caused it.
You should be able to reverse engineer
You'd expect
a
so.
likely scenario or set of events from what the data tells you.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah. I know you're not allowed to speculate in these situations, but naturally we always do. And after thinking about it a lot, and we've talked about it a lot, I think it's most likely looking at everything that's possible, that's happened before and that we know, and could cause the outcomes that people have been talking about. You know, there's altitude variations and
Right.
its location and the
All
turn
this,
and all
yeah.
that. Fire. Oxygen fire. Cockpit, like it was Cairo, probably ignited from lighting a cigarette.
Possibly, because this co-pilot was a smoker.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've seen that reported somewhere. And, you know, they do smoke.
Yeah.
And we've seen the pictures of the 777 at Cairo. That, you know, it melted the side of the plane.
Yeah.
That's a fire that is out as soon as there's no oxygen.
Right.
And as soon as the oxygen's gone through the hole, the fire's out.
Yep.
The cockpit is melted. You've seen those pictures.
Yep.
But the plane is autopilot or whatever. And, you know, as long as the electronics underneath in the racks are okay, on you go.
Yeah.
And you get a disconnect at some point. You get the phugoids and, you know.
Yeah, or the gaping hole in the side of the fuselage. Who knows what the flight controls will be trying to do as they compensate for the drag and here and there and everything. I'm more inclined to believe that than I am to believe that it was an evildoer.
No, I agree. Yeah. An evildoer.
An evildoer. Because now some Americans come out and saying, oh, it was flown around like a fighter jet.
Yes, I saw that.
And you say, well, wouldn't that actually lend credence to the idea that it was sort of semi in control but not quite in control? And
Or flying itself.
trying to fly itself.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I mean, it could have been battling damage.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you look at that 7-4 out of Honolulu back in the 80s that lost the cargo door,
Yep.
fore cargo door opened and ripped the side off. I mean, a lot of junk went through the engine, smashed the leading edge, even smashed, I think, the horizontal stabilizer way at the back.
Yeah.
You know, it's brutal.
As we said before, I think, and we probably agree on this, that it's unlikely that an evildoer
Yeah.
would have spent so long flying it around.
I don't think it was an evildoer.
No.
So we're fascinated by that. There was a report of some sort of petroleum slick on the surface, but I haven't heard any more about that. Have you? Was it away for analysis or
Well,
something?
judging by what we've seen from the satellite pictures, half of the South Indian Ocean appears to be made up of debris fields and oil
junkyard.
slicks, because the fishing boats don't seem to be that as environmentally friendly as I've always thought. There, Paul.
They've always
Guardians of the sea.
They've always come across as environmentally friendly, and
Yeah.
the truth is, well, it's shocking actually.
Oh, bit of dirt on the deck. Let's flush it overboard.
They don't care.
Oh, some plastic drums we don't need. Let's chuck them overboard.
Yeah, we
Oh,
just throw everything overboard.
some old kerosene. Let's chuck it overboard.
Yeah, the cook
Yeah.
can't stand his food. Whoops.
Yeah.
Last seen in the southern Indian Ocean.
They do seem to be quite messy, don't they?
They are. Well, they're horrible polluters. They have no regard for the environment. That's
That'd
one
be
thing
a-
we've learned.
That'd be a better use for the satellite time, would be to track them down and find them.
I'd be prepared to have my taxes help in that.
Yes,
They have to be stopped. That's another issue,
it is.
but it's one that we certainly are talking about at the moment. Right.
And one we support.
Close to home, did you see that black 787 of Air New Zealand's? What do you make of that? Looked pretty cool, didn't it?
Yeah, it's obviously sponsored by the Silver Ferns netball team, though, isn't it?
Oh, no, I thought it was the rugby team.
Or maybe the All Blacks, yeah.
Or was it Tourism New Zealand?
Who knows? But it certainly looks quite corporate, doesn't it?
We're talking about the fern on it.
Yeah.
Perhaps for people outside of the
Copyright and all that, because we're probably not allowed to mention the fern without actually
getting permission?
getting permission.
Okay, the fern.
Trademark, copyright.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say... I can't say it. It does look corporate-y.
Yes.
Yeah.
A little bit boring. I mean, it's a striking looking plane with the black and everything, but I think that logo is a bit ho-humish.
We've had this sort of discussion before. It creeps into an expression of the national identity, which is not a corporate thing. It's more of a thing of tradition, and
Yeah.
it's not cheap, is what I'm saying.
There's not a lot of whimsy in the design.
Well put.
There you go.
But it's captured the imagination of people, because I've seen really amazing comments like, wow, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen on a plane.
I mean, it is certainly striking, and it'll look great when it's flying in. And it's a very, having seen a few 787s, of which the 787-900 is the best looking example, they
Yeah.
are a fine looking aircraft.
Oh, there you go. Okay, and also Air New Zealand has its first Dreamliner simulator. So that's always a sign that things aren't too far away from starting.
Getting the pilots all trained up and ready to go.
Yep, that'd be fun.
Yep.
You've done a 747-400 simulator, haven't you?
Yes.
And I've done a few, an A320 and a 72 and a 73, and they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, they are.
I'd like to have one. It's just they cost millions of bucks.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Did you see that story about resurrecting the 757?
Yes, I did. Yes. A lot of people are very sort of nostalgic for the 757, aren't they? Everybody except the airlines, it seems.
Yeah, It's based on the 7.2, isn't it? The same fuselage as that?
And it's even got that step down.
Yes.
You know, from the 727, from where the wing joined the fuselage, the rear fuselage was a bit thicker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's even got that.
Still got that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's heavy, isn't it? By today's standards?
It's a heavy, overbuilt aircraft by today's standards.
Basically, Boeing are in a real problem area here, it seems. Airbus, with a new engine and not much to the wing, could have an A322, couldn't they? With an extra 20, 30 seats.
It'd be fascinating to see if they did
stretched
that.
out?
Yeah, a slightly bigger carbon wing, optimized
bigger
for
tanks,
mid-range, more fuel,
yeah,
more lift, slightly bigger engines, and they could probably put another 50 seats in it.
And how long would the jump from what they're already doing to that is not huge.
You wouldn't think it's huge.
They have to start from scratch if they want to be in that category.
Yes, they've now said that they cannot resurrect the 757, and a lot of that is probably they don't want to resurrect the 757 because the basic structure would be too heavy.
Wasn't the tooling dealt to?
Apparently, but I mean, they can make new tools. They've got all the drawings and everything.
Yeah.
But the engineering required to make it competitive, you'd have to start with a new plane.
You would.
The 737-900 MAX or 9 MAX is no stretchable.
No.
But some people are saying the A320 series, yes, you could put another X frames on the end of it, mate it to quite a bit of a bigger wing, blah blah blah. Home you'd go.
And you're seeing these new seats. I'm looking at this new seat, the 4 kg seat that people have been talking about.
Yeah, French company.
Yeah, on a reasonable size aircraft, that can save hundreds of thousands a year just in weight, and you can put more seats in.
Yeah.
And sell more bums on seats. So you're going to see that sort of stuff meet up with a new airframe like that, boy.
Well, they reckon on a low-cost carrier like Ryanair, a set of those seats in one of their planes would save them $400,000 a year in fuel costs alone. Plus, you could get a few more people in because at 29-inch pitch, these new seats provide the same amount of space as a 30.5 or a 31-inch pitch seat. So,
wow.
And as long as you're not sitting in it for longer than 3 or 4 hours, it's going to be no less comfortable.
Yeah, so there's some huge gains to be made yet. It's happening all the time because we talked about, the floor change. What was it for the A380 last program? That gets an extra, 30 seats in or 40 seats in?
Yeah, by raising the floor a few inches, they move the elbow height of the average person up into the widest part of the fuselage. It gives them an extra, I think, 4.5 inches of width in the fuselage, and they can add another seat. Still at 18-inch width seats, which is still wider than most people have in their 777s, which ranges between 17.5 and 17.2 in economy.
So what does that work out as if you're saying it's X amount more efficient based on the initial model? I mean, that's what? That's 2, 3, 4, 5%.
Yeah.
More seats, isn't it?
And they can still keep their massive business class sections and their huge first class section, because everyone thought that by this stage the airlines would be ramping down these, lavish first and business class facilities, but they're filling them up. So they're still making money out of that, and so to get more people in, they're going to go to 11 abreast in the back.
Well, surely Airbus realise that there must still be an opportunity to replace, because they built over 1,000 757s. I see Delta has over 60, or over 100, I beg your pardon. United has like 100 and some, and there's some big fleets that need replacing in the next 5 or so years probably, that are going to be a little bit more needy in terms of range and capacity than the 321, but not much more.
Yeah, well, the 321 Neo gives them a little bit more, but a 322 with, as we said, a slightly bigger wing and everything, that could go another 1,000 miles with an extra 40, 50 people.
Amazing.
That's quite interesting. Also interesting about the 757, it's very interesting how quickly the European airline, particularly British Airways, they got rid of them pretty quickly.
They did, yeah. Mind you, there was an opportunity for them to be package freighters that they had to utilize.
And it's mainly just the Americans that are keeping them on. What were you saying about containerized freight? Maybe that's a driver for the Europeans to get rid of them.
Well, that's the other advantage. At the practical level, turning the aircraft around, if you're going to stick with a 757, you've still got guys throwing luggage up into a hole. The other way, of course, you're putting them in containers, and it's a whole lot more manageable and less people and quicker. So that's in itself is an advantage.
Yeah.
You're not going to see it.
But the Americans, that doesn't seem to affect them so much, obviously, because their wages for their ramp staff is probably a lot lower. Yeah.
Well, what does that tell you then? See? Oh, well, plenty of airlines in America now are Airbus, so they're operating that way anyway, aren't they? Speaking of American Airlines, what about that US Air? Was it a tweet?
It was a tweet.
with the pornographic picture
Most unfortunate tweet.
involving a 777 model. I
It
believe,
was a 777, as somebody pointed out, an aircraft which US Airways doesn't fly.
Yeah, so it was inaccurate.
Yeah.
But that was some customer complained, and that was the reply. What, from an individual or from the corporate comms people? At the airline?
It was an image that had been sent around within the company, just between people, inappropriate as it was, and it was meant to be flagged as inappropriate and taken out of the system.
Right.
But instead of being flagged as inappropriate, it got flagged to be part of a sort of corporate comms tweet that went out.
Oh dear.
And,
what, to all their followers?
I mean, I have been to the Twitter page and read some of the follow-up comments. They are very funny.
They've taken it down.
They've taken.
But someone
the image
must have
down.
got a screen grab of it at some point.
The image is freely available all over the place. Yes.
We're not including it on our YouTube version, by the way.
But some of the comments are very funny.
I mean, what sort of damage control can you do in that? You can obviously apologise and you say I'm really sorry, but
There's really nothing you can do, is there? I
you've
mean,
got to, well, any publicity is good publicity.
well, I think the other angle is that American Airlines are held in such low esteem by the public. I don't think anybody really cares.
Right.
It's a one-day wonder, and it'll move
Here's
on.
the thing. Actually, it reveals the true culture of the place. Really.
Yes.
Whatever, prudeness and God and God-fearing.
folksy and all this type
and
of
your
thing.
founding fathers. In the
end of the day, they know
it's just porn everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
full of the place.
They
It's
know
the
better than
capital of it in
anybody
the
else.
world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so that's an interesting one. We'll see what happens there. A couple of things to mention, and this may ring a bell for some people, especially older viewers or listeners, and that is World Airways has shut down, an airline with quite a history. I was watching this video recently, Martin. I saw it come up on YouTube, and that was the World Airways 727 that made an emergency or desperate departure, I guess. I forget the name of the airport. You might have the details come out there. Da Nang Airport, is
Yeah.
it? And there's some sort of record for the number of people that were on board, and I think a grenade blew up underneath the wing as they were taxiing out or something. Anyway, World Airways has just closed down, and of course that back then was a World Airways plane. But I believe the guy who owned the airline was actually on board that plane and involved in that incident.
So, yeah, the plane was the last flight out of Da Nang as the North Vietnamese took over the city. It had 268 people in the cabin. So this is what was it, 727, 180-seater?
Oh, no, it was a 100, so it would have been
Oh, it was a
130.
130, right?
Yeah, maybe 130 around there.
So it had 268 people in the cabin.
Incredible.
It had 60 people in the cargo holds. As the airport was being overrun, and this was the last flight out, so as they taxied out, and they had to get underway real quick.
Yeah.
There were all these people running down
Imagine that.
running across the tarmac to try and get on this plane. And on the 727, they had that rear air stair that came.
So that would have been what, open?
That was extended.
Yeah. And
And
people trying to run up it.
People were trying to run up it, and there was a guy down the bottom of the air stair trying to fend these people off. Anyway, the plane took off. Well, that guy down the bottom of the air stair, that was the CEO of the company.
Right.
Yeah, Mr. Daly.
Incredible.
Yeah.
They were able to take off and get out of there. There's a shot, a bit of footage of another World Airways 72 coming up beside them to inspect them. I don't know where they landed. Was it Saigon?
Saigon, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They didn't have to fly far.
Right, no. Some people may have fallen out too. I heard that may have happened.
I think that people definitely fell off the air stair because they had to retract it at some point, and people were trying to hang on, and people were holding on to the landing gear legs and all this type of nonsense.
Right. Well, World Airways, I think they went on to, he ordered the 747 convertible. They were the first to get the convertible, and they had a DC-10 convertible as well. They were into, being able to change it from all cargo to all passenger, and they were a charter airline.
Well, they mainly did US government stuff, so they did an awful lot of troop ferrying around.
And equipment,
And equipment. So, their major break was flying stuff into Vietnam.
Yeah, and they carried on doing that, didn't they, with the Desert Storm 91 and then
Iraq, Afghanistan.
even recently. So why did they run out? Did they fall out of favour with the defence contractors or something?
Yeah, it seems that their contracts dried up, and that's it for them after 66 years.
They had a couple of 747-400s and I think some MD-11s at the end, didn't they?
Yeah, their fleet was 2 747-400s and 7 MD-11s, a mixture of converted passenger planes, freighters, and then dedicated freighters.
Headquartered in Georgia, Peachtree City. I've been there.
Yeah.
It's a lovely place, very wooded.
Full of peach trees.
Yeah, not too far away from Atlanta.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is that there's a network of over, I think, 100 miles of golf cart tracks.
Okay.
And people drive around the Peachtree City on golf
in their
carts.
golf carts.
And they're big car parks, so you drive into these car parks,
Okay.
and then you sort of resume.
Drop your car off and pick up your buggy.
And you drive on these little golf cart roads everywhere. It's pretty cool, really.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a couple of MD-11s of theirs at Baltimore Airport driving past there once.
Okay.
I think that was one of the staging posts for their military operations.
Well, they are no more.
World Airways gone. There goes another one.
Although they're mainly remembered as a charter freight airline, for a short time back in the 80s, they did offer international and domestic passenger services, scheduled passenger services with their DC-10s. But
Right. A couple of visitors into Wellington. You saw it, the ANA 777-300ER a couple of weeks ago.
yeah, I got onto a plane to fly to Melbourne, and I looked out the left-hand window where I was sitting, and yeah, there was an ANA 777-300.
What do you know?
I was like, whoa, what's this doing here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they lost their way.
must have.
It was a Japanese business delegation. And 737-700 BBJ was through the other day. It's been through also Queenstown, Christchurch, out Hamilton off to Australia. Is that the Russian oligarch with the
That's what I heard.
boat?
Yeah.
And well guarded, we hear.
Apparently, yeah. Apparently they were brandishing what appeared to be weapons at boats that got too close to them.
Oh, it's been in the harbour, you see, for a
Yeah.
few days. What were they here for? Repairs or something?
I have no idea what they were doing.
To
in
enjoy
Wellington.
the coffee. They'd heard the coffee was good in these parts.
That would be it.
He flew in specially. Stayed on the boat and then flew out.
Yeah, brandished a few guns and got out of here.
That's right. And a couple more things before we talk about our plane of the day. A330neo, more likely. You see that quite a bit now.
Yeah.
The A350-800's gone. That is basically the 800, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
what we're seeing here.
I think as long as they can talk Hawaiian into taking them,
Yep.
it's a done deal.
And what engine are they going to be using?
It'll be the same engine as on the 787, but with bleed air.
Ah,
So yeah, it'll get the latest generation roller,
yep.
possibly the G-Nex, but I expect it's more likely to be the roller. And I think Rolls-Royce, in order to develop that engine, will insist upon a exclusive deal. Of course, the engine on the 7478 is a bleed air version of the G-Nex, but it still seems, in all the commentary that I've read, that the Rolls-Royce engine is the front runner.
Right.
And with some minor aerodynamic tweaks and some new materials, it looks like it'll be a pretty competitive aircraft.
And it'll have a lower purchase price?
It'll have a much lower purchase price and easy to maintain for operators of previous generation equipment.
No
and
extra training required,
it's
really.
a known quantity.
Yeah.
And airlines like AirAsia X and apparently even Delta are very, very interested in it.
So watch that space. Remember when we were talking, I think it was 2 programs ago, we mentioned as part of this tie-up between Air New Zealand and Singapore, Auckland Airport were getting a bit edgy about what that could mean for competition on the route. And we were saying, well, who goes there anyway? Well, Jetstar pulled out 2 days after that
Yeah.
from Auckland, Singapore.
Yep.
So there you go.
That's that.
The airport company knew that was going to happen,
Yep.
didn't they?
Yep.
Okay, airplane of the day. We've got probably, I'd say the hottest, well, do we break it down to a category? Jet fighter, jet airplane ever built.
Interceptor.
It looks the part. This aircraft has always looked the part, and what's always fascinated me is one engine on top of the other.
Yes.
We're talking about, of course, was it BAC or BAE?
No, it was English Electric Lightning.
Oh, sorry.
Same people that made the Canberra.
Electric Lightning.
Yeah.
Interceptor fighter.
Interceptor fighter.
Very short range.
Due to the specification, not because they couldn't have made it longer range. Yep.
Yeah.
Very unusual layout with one engine on top of the other, all designed to give it a very small frontal area because
But deep, though.
quite a deep fuselage. They chose that, as I said, to keep the frontal area real small because they decided to go with a front inlet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because it made airflow control a whole lot easier. So it had these ducts passing under the cockpit to take air to the top and bottom engine.
Yeah.
One engine, the top engine, was mounted significantly further forward than the rear engine for balance control.
Right.
And that made the jet pipe for the top engine quite difficult because the air had a long way to travel before it got to the afterburner at the back.
Oh, okay.
But an amazing performer and a fantastic looking plane.
Yes.
60-degree sweep. I think they describe the wing plan as a cutout delta.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And the tailplane had exactly the same sweep and everything. And basically it set the configuration for, up until recently, all subsequent fighters with a high or shoulder-mounted main wing and a low-mounted tailplane.
Yeah. It had incredible performance, didn't it? It could climb like you wouldn't believe.
It was one of the first planes that could climb vertically.
And I think it was more than Mach 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, Mach 2, just over Mach 2.2 or something, yeah.
And side by side. Or one of the versions was.
Yeah, the trainer version had side-by-side cockpit, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only one still airworthy is one of those.
Okay. They were exported too, weren't they? And not just the British. I think the South Africans had them.
No, the South Africans bought two as a private venture.
Ah, right.
I think the only
got that
export
wrong.
customers were in the Middle East. I think Saudi Arabia bought a whole bunch, and Kuwait took them.
Okay. Well, geez, I didn't realise that. How long did they have them flying for?
They were in service for over 25 years. I think the initial one came in the late 50s, 59, 60.
Yeah.
And the British retired them in the very late 80s, and I think the Saudis retired them a little bit after
Right.
that.
Okay. Well, I didn't realise it was that long.
Most British aircraft from that era just look fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, the Vulcan, the
Yes.
HP, the Handley Page Victor, the Victor bomber. That's got to be the best looking plane ever made.
It's sort of out of this world.
Oh,
looking.
it just looks like science fiction.
Yeah. Even the VC-10.
Yeah, or the Javelin.
The
you
curves,
know,
the curves.
That big fat Delta plane.
Yeah. The Vixen, Sea Vixen.
Oh,
Remember that
those
one?
were just fantastic. Even the little Vampire. When I was at Ohaki at that air show a year or so ago, they had that guy doing flight display in a Vampire.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Tiny little things zipping around.
Yeah. 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 That's right. That was the golden era.
Oh, but the Lightning takes, I mean, that thing. There's an anecdote that one of the guys who was converting to, it's on YouTube, there's quite a good documentary about it. He was doing his first flight and he was told not to use afterburner, that full non-afterburner power would be enough.
Yeah.
And he got a bit carried away and he gave it full afterburner and the plane got away from him and he said he got the wheels up at 28,000 feet. That's when he realized, that's when he finally got it all back together
Yeah.
and managed to find the lever. Yeah.
So that's accelerating vertically almost.
Yeah. They went through Mark 1 on the third flight.
Gee.
And the guy who did the test took it through Mark 1, absolutely no buffet, no nothing.
Yeah.
Took his hands off all the controls and it just carried on slowly accelerating.
Incredible.
The Palms made great looking planes.
Yeah, they did. No doubt. All right, so we've out of time again. Gosh, it goes quick, doesn't it? Another 2 weeks. So I'm predicting that they will have located some wreckage by the next time we're talking.
Well, I'd hope
You'd
so.
hope, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
All right, so in the meantime, it's goodbye from me, Paul Brennan in Wellington, and
Goodbye from me, Martin Noakes.
see you later.
Cheers.